Welcome to Fathernetics, Fatherhood Unfiltered. I'm Jamil. Welcome to the podcast.
You can never find somebody do it like me. I'ma turn it all the way up, cause it kamikaze. Go ahead and try, baby, you are gonna see that you'll never.
All right, guys, welcome back to our podcast. So this is another episode where I have promised you to bring a illustrious guest in for some of our discussions and some of our topics. So I want to allow her to introduce herself. And while she is not a father, as I've discussed before, fathers are really roles and not necessarily a sex. It's not just the male, but it is a role that we all play in our lives. And while she's a mother, I think she is also an excellent father.
Oh, Jamil, that was really sweet.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I'm in my late 30s, but I do identify as a 23-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I am married to my wonderful husband, Shali, and I have a 7-year-old son, Henry. So you'll hear Shali and Henry quite a bit. I am an HR professional by day and a mom and wife at night, and on the weekends, soccer mom on the weekends. And just for fun, I love eating good food. I love spending time with my besties, Nick and Jamil. Love spending time with family and friends.
Yeah.
It's a
I
little
think
about me.
the HR space is probably perfect for this type of conversation. I don't know how many times you may actually dive into details that we will probably go into, but just in the grand sphere of things in the LGBTQ community, there are always subgroups within companies to kind of foster those connection points and relationships, and sometimes they go good and sometimes they don't. So if you're going to share any of those, feel free.
Okay.
We'll take as much as you can give us. We know there's some privacy concerns that you'll probably be aware of, but feel free to share all of that with me. Now, did you want to tell us more, like a name for yourself?
I just jumped right in, didn't I? Well, yeah, I think that's an important part that I missed. My name is Daisy.
Thank you, Daisy. Welcome. And as she said, Daisy is a really good friend, best friend for my husband, Nicholas, and a really good friend of the family. We've known her and her husband and her child for quite some time. So let's jump right in. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you coming on to the podcast is, what do you think when you see LGBTQ parents with kids out and about, much like our family, but just kind of out and about, at the mall, driving, what pops into your mind when you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Honestly, I think a beautiful family. I see kids that are happy with their parents. And I feel like great parenting, honestly, it's not about gender or sexual orientation. It's really about providing a safe environment, a supportive environment, and a fun and loving environment.
No, I think that's spot on. And I think that just coming from my perspective and having our kid, which was adopted through the state, as you know,
Yeah.
we've tried our best from when we started to be very focused on making sure that we were raising someone who was very balanced, very open, very into observing and taking things as they are, as opposed to starting with a filter or with whatever prejudice happened to exist in the world. Well, he's still young, so he's still developing that, but we have already started to engage him in that way, and we're hoping that kind of engagement produces a human being that helps to shape the world. Historically speaking, there's been such a backlash against LGBTQ parents, and are they worthy of being parents, of adopting kids, of managing kids, of being around anyone, right? And it's really just kind of based in prejudice and misconceptions and just a whole lot of religious connotations as well. So do you often think that you see a lot of that when you are interacting with the modern family that may be out there, or are we the only gay couple that that have kids specifically that's out there right now?
I think what I see, first of all, is when I see LGBTQ plus parents, I see parents who love their kids. And then I see them doing their best and probably had to fight harder than most to have that family. Personally, I know that you and Nick are our closest and only friends that have kids, that are LGBTQ plus couple. But I know plenty of other couples out there that have kids, you know, that I'm not too close with, but I know that they do.
No, I think that's a good example of I think the way the tide is changing. I think historically speaking, gay couples haven't really considered taking that plunge to getting a kid
Yeah.
because it's been so difficult in the past. It's getting better, but it's always been such a hardship. No, you can't have that, and if you try, we're gonna make it so rigorous that you're going to give up. And I think now 2025, 2026, we're in a better place where it might be a little easier,
Yeah,
but we're in the era of Donald Trump
we are.
and we don't know what's going to happen. There are a lot of laws out there that are already being cherry picked to say, let's pull that out. That shouldn't be, not just gay men, but, transgender people,
Yeah.
those in the military, just day to day type stuff, how people show up to corporate America.
Yeah.
So I think that probably plays a little bit of a role in your HR world and just the concerns that a lot of LGBTQ people have. And the reason I bring that up is a lot of our fathers tend to be concerned with stability, right?
Yeah.
Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be able to continue to function in the military and provide for my family? Is this now going to become where my marriage is not recognized?
Yeah.
My parental rights are going to be impacted. Am I going to lose my kid? I think those are all bona fide concerns that were sunsetting, but now they're like front and center.
Yeah.
And there's a considerable amount of fear out there. So let's talk about some of the biases that you may or may not have heard about LGBTQ dads. What have you heard? Have you heard anything?
I have to admit that there are, unfortunately, biases exist. They're always going to be there. People have this idea that kids need a home with a mother and father to be raised in quotes right, and that completely, absolutely ignores the fact that it's more about providing the child with love, the stability, support, and structure, and what all that actually matters.
Because what is right?
Yeah.
Right? Right, and I'm being repetitive. What is right, right? Every family does it different.
Yeah.
Every family, regardless of how hard they try, run the risk of providing or producing, should I say, an anomaly. Nick was kidding about this the other day. We love our kid unconditionally until they become a murderer and go to jail. And it's like, okay. So we think of the worst things that could happen, and we try to plan for stuff like that. I know we have a kid that's in a grade age kid is what they're called, right? So he's in elementary, about to go into middle school. And one of my concerns is what's going to happen when he's in that atmosphere. One, there is bullying.
Right.
He's got two dads.
Yeah.
He also has the cultural aspect. He's got black, white, and also Native American.
Yeah.
That's a mix for him. Here in Arizona, Native American biases are a thing. Obviously, here in the United States, being black and racism is very much a thing. And I know that you've experienced some of that yourself, being of Indian descent.
Yeah.
And having to deal with some of the cultural changes here in the U.S. Tell us about that and how you think you would educate your son on that experience, how to be prepared for those conversations that are, I want to say, inevitable.
I think what we're doing right now already makes a difference. It's about being open to talk about what may be uncomfortable, what may be different. What I think, and I think the world has changed a little bit in the sense that there is more exposure due to social media. We have everything on our fingertips. So I think in a way we have to use that as a tool to also educate, whether it's our children or each other, right? So our plan is to make sure that Henry learns what's important to us and what's important in general, whether it's treating others. But when going back to a little bit about, our culture and where we come from, I think we have to just do our part in making sure that we talk to him about it. And we make sure that we are answering his questions. We're making it a comfortable space for him to come to us with anything, with any questions that he may have, any challenges that he may face, and then being able to explain to him what to do in a situation like that and why he's different and why and where he can learn more about it, right?
And I think one of the things you're doing, you and your husband are doing, is, in the next year or so, you're actually doing what I would call a sabbatical or a trip back to the motherland, India.
Yes.
So that his understanding of his background, his culture is not over there.
Yeah.
It's something that now he has within him.
Right.
I've been there. I've seen it. I understand it. Now, if I'm approached and someone is trying to make fun of it or something, I can say, no. You misunderstood. Let me explain it to you. So tell us about the drive that you have for that first adventure for your son to go back to India for the first time.
So we're very, very excited about this trip, and it's coming up. It's going to happen at the end of this year. We, of course, wanted to wait for the right time because we wanted him to absorb the trip in itself, and we wanted him to remember. So he's going to be 8 at the end of this year. And we felt like this was going to be the right time where he's going to have a good memory of his experience. So really taking him there and having him experience India in itself, the people, his history, a lot about the family, where his parents are from. So I think that alone and him experiencing that, really understanding all of that will answer a lot of the questions that he may have. And then he can speak to it himself. Because that's, I think, a part of the struggle too is, sometimes people don't know what to say, or kids don't know what to say because they don't know. They may not have had the exposure to why they're different, right? So I think that trip is going to be a big deal for him. It's going to be a big deal for us, but we're very excited about it. It's something that we're really looking forward to, and we want him to come back and know that he belongs to this wonderful family. He is very loved, and we want him to learn more about India, and that's where his family's from.
Yeah, I think, again, it's such a benefit for him. And I think that, unfortunately, not a lot of families have an opportunity to do that.
Right.
So they still have that, I know about this, but I don't really know about it because there's that disconnect. So I think that from his perspective, being able to see and smell and experience and hear the experiences that you get in. Obviously I've been to India. You guys got married. You guys invited us. We went, spent 3 weeks out there. It's still one of my favorite trips. It's just such a different world, but it's so welcoming. Everyone out there is so nice. And of course, you guys did a great job of preparing us for everything we needed to. So our experience was fantastic. And I also think that there are some components tied to your husband, the fatherhood side of things, if you will, that kind of drive a lot of where you guys are going to go and experience. What do you think that will do for him to better see a lot of the background coming from dad's side?
That's going to give him a really good understanding of where, once again, where his family's from, right? Just a little bit about me. Most of my family is already here in the States or just kind of all over the world. And so is even my husband's family, but his parents and a lot of his immediate family members still live in India. So I think that exposure to them, that that relationship with them that he's going to build to be stronger is going to make a big difference. And one of the things we're actually doing, going back to just getting excited about the trip, is we're having him, well, he's, I think because of his age, he's starting to get curious and he's starting to ask a lot of questions. So we're having him write down his questions that he wants to ask some of his family members, and
Oh,
some
that's
of the,
clever.
yeah, and some of the things he wants to learn. So I have a little journal for him. I want him to document his experience from his point of view, so that way he can reference it and have it be the experience he wants it to be. But we're very excited. I mean,
So where did you get that idea from?
Yeah.
Because I listen. So
Okay.
let's take a quick, brief moment and say,
Yeah.
for as long as I've known you, you've been very creative in some of the things that I've often been like, okay, why didn't I think of stuff? So
Yeah.
I'm very curious as to where you may have come up with the concept of having an 8-year-old write questions down.
Yeah.
For that to be a process, right? These are the things, and then be able to ask questions about that later,
Yeah.
which I think is phenomenal, psychologically, if you will.
Yeah.
So where'd that come from?
Okay, so like you, I observe.
Okay.
I have observed my son be very, very curious, and I'm very proud of the fact that both my husband and I have taken parenting him, not just very seriously, but we've made it a priority. So I think in the past few years, I've spent a lot of time in observing him and seeing how he absorbs information in general. So I like to challenge him in the sense that, okay, well, these are your questions. So how are you going to get these answers? What are we going to do? Okay, well, now I can really reference this trip coming up. So how are we going to prepare? How are you going to stay excited? What are you going to do when we're there? Are we going to take pictures? But are you going to write down some of the stories you're told? Are you going to write down some of your memories or what you're learning so we can reference it? So some of these ideas just kind of come about because I'm seeing this little personality grow. But at the same time, I think Pinterest is my favorite friend. And there's some really, really, really cool notebooks, like travel diaries for kids. There's some really cool things out there where
That's interesting.
when
I
kids
never thought about that.
Yeah, so when kids travel, they can take little pictures, put a picture with their family member and
That
write
I
a little
have
bit
tried.
about them.
I was thinking about
Yeah.
doing the what do you call them, the photos you can take. It pulls out of the
Got
Polaroids.
Polaroids.
Yes. So
Yeah.
so before our son had a smartphone,
Okay.
we were thinking of doing Polaroids, so he could just take Polaroids, because he's like, oh, let me get your phone, I want to take a picture. And it's like,
Yeah.
you can't have my phone, because then you end up in stuff you're not supposed
Yes.
to be.
Yeah.
So I thought the Polaroid would be good, but I mean, the way that you want to do it and tying it
Yeah.
to like a memory book or some sort of a journal or something,
Yes.
I think 20 years from now it's gonna be like,
Yeah.
wow. Plus, on top of that, I think what you're inevitably teaching your kid is how to plan and prepare
Yes. Yes.
for meetings or events or things that are
Mm-hmm.
of interest, or maybe, being a travel blogger in the future. Who knows,
Yeah.
right? So, coming out of that, what do you think from a father's perspective will help make your son a great dad?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I have to say, seeing my husband parent Henry, so his name's Shali, he's parenting Henry, and seeing you and Nick parent Jacob, I have a lot of respect for you guys. I think seeing you guys parent the boys, I think I see you guys create a very safe environment for them. I think that's what a great dad needs to be able to do, is create a safe, fun environment for the child. That's also, being able to listen to them, being able to lead with love, and a great dad that's willing to show up, show their emotional side, willing to say sorry, right? And also willing to grow with their child. I think, and I'll use an example of what Shali actually said a few weeks ago. We were talking about, just how much we're enjoying parenting, and though it comes with challenges, we're just loving it. But you know what he said to me? He's like, Daisy, I love our son, and all I want for him is to be happy. I just want to make him happy. I just want to be there for him. I want to show up for him. I want to cheer him on, and I just want him to be happy. And I see that I see that in him. I see that in you and in Nick. You are happy when your child is happy, and I think that's a great dad. You're not trying to live your dreams, or you're not trying to achieve your goals through your child. You know, they're their own individual people, and I think you guys really respect that about them. And that's what I think is a great dad, you know? And looking at, you know, just kind of looking at how I grew up, but also thinking back and looking at, you know, the little Daisy, I think about what is it that I got or needed. You know, you just want a parent to have fun with, that listens to you, that prioritizes you, that loves you, and that's present, you know? So I think that's a great dad for me.
No, I think that's a good point to make. I think the fun part of being a dad is understated. We spend a lot of our time trying to teach, educate, mold. It can be easy to get lost in the structure that's tied to being a parent, you know, the chores and the homework and the you get to school on time, and oh my god, you forgot your shoe, now I'm frustrated, or you know, something happened, I told you not to do that, and here we, you know, that
Yeah.
kind of a thing. But I do agree, the most joy that we get from, you know, our son is really right now when we travel. He loves to travel.
Yeah.
Loves to travel.
I love that.
So he's always like, what plane are we getting on? I used to tell some folks at work, if we're not leaving our city,
Yeah.
then he's like, nah, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're not getting on a plane. No, I don't want to go. So, but if we're getting on a plane, it's like, yeah, okay, we're ready 3 weeks ago, which in itself is a problem. But I think one of the things that you highlighted well is the emotional piece that comes from fathers.
Yeah.
That emotional intelligence, which is the buzzword out there, right?
Yeah.
Really being able to understand how to encode and decode, right? How do I communicate to my child in a way that they understand it, not the way that I want to be communicated to, but in a way that they can understand it? And how do I understand how they communicate at this level in their lives so that I can receive that and have enough information to do something with it? I think oftentimes we all get frustrated, even as adults, right? We're communicating, we're talking past each other. We're not, you know, I just want the short version, but you want to give me a story. And it's like I don't have time for, you know, I'm very much that way. My personality is give me the 5 steps and that's all I need.
Yeah.
Nick is much like you. It's like, I'm going to give you the 5 steps, but it's 1.5, 1.8, 1 point, you know? So it's like, okay, so we're going to be here all day.
Yeah.
And I get that. There's a story that you always want to craft. Tell me if you have noticed the difference in personalities or the similarities, if you will, between your husband and your son that maybe he's latching onto.
Yeah. So Shali grew up with loads of structure, and loads of love. He grew up, you know, very lucky in the sense that he always had a lot of family around, you know, and that structure, I think he feels very strongly about keeping that consistent in parenting Henry. And I find that I see that paying off because I see a very relaxed, calm, and confident child who feels really good with his dad. I see a lot of similarities in them in the sense that they're both very, they're kind of, it's funny, they're both very practical, loads of logic, very sarcastic, both of them. So they're
just now sarcastic. Hadn't always been that way, but he is got a mouth on him today.
Totally. So true. So the similarities are definitely there between them. But, you know, Henry looks up to his dad and he can see how his dad is. So I think his mannerisms, how he talks to me, how he is a husband, how his interest in wanting to parent, I think that's a big one too. Henry can see that. And I think that's what makes him happy too, is that he is able to see his dad have lots of interest in him. So
what have you seen from dad that kind of ties into the comment you made earlier where family is key and important to him? What steps and measures have you seen him do to try to bring you and his son closer to the family bubble?
So Shelley's a really, really good storyteller and he has a very good memory.
Yeah, he does.
He really does. And so
What is this? Space engineer, aeronautical? What is he?
I know he's an aerospace engineer.
Aerospace engineer.
But I think, and honestly, I think the fact that the guy loves, he just has such a good memory. I mean, he likes to study for fun, you know? Like,
Yeah, he's weird.
yeah, I know. But we love him. So I think he's very good about telling his life stories to us, and all that he's experienced with his parents and his cousins growing up, his boarding school. I think he does a really good job at making a full circle with those stories, where you're left wanting to know more, wanting to go visit these places that he's talked about. So that's what keeps us really interested in. And honestly, he has a lot of people that love him so much, and they're constantly showing it. And that makes us want to be a part of that.
So role models to me
Yeah.
is everyone. And I think that kids and maybe even adults take bits and pieces from everyone without really knowing that they're doing so, right? There are those that are bigger role models in our lives. They tend to be the parents. Those are my role models. If you ask someone, my role model is my mom, my dad, or there is a similar competition, or maybe competition isn't the right word, but they're just as big, you know, some sports star or something that in the moment is their role model. But we all know at the end of the day who their role models are. But I say that to say any child that we come across, we have the potential of impacting from a role model perspective.
Yeah.
Our son's kids, his friends that
Yeah.
come across, we're role models in the sense that we're now helping to break the mold that gay couples are weird or they have some sort of ill intent. That's not the case here. So that can't be true.
Right.
We're doing that by how we are representing ourselves, how we're caring for them, how we're being very particular in their experiences in our home, because they're going to take that and share that with their parents.
Right.
Our son is also getting that role model perspective from your husband, because he spends a lot of time with Shally, and the storytelling that he does.
Yeah.
You know, and I listen to it too. I mean, the history from, you know, colonialism in India, and how, you know, the UK back then, England, you know, did a lot of movement, if you will,
Yeah.
in that space. And
Yeah.
he has the knowledge there. Like,
He does.
in America, we don't grow up saying, let's learn about
Yeah.
colonialism in Europe or in India. So a lot of these stories are brand new to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, we may know about Kashmir
Yeah.
because we want a Kashmir shirt,
Right.
right? But we don't know anything about, you know, Kashmir, the country. It's like,
Right.
okay, and he'll just go into it. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that is fascinating. So I
Yeah.
can only imagine, you know, our son, your son, listening to stuff like that, ear
Yeah.
hustling, if you will, because we're not talking to them. They don't really care, but they're picking it up.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm glad that type of exposure
Yeah.
is there. Our son is always like, let's put on. He's got this Indian music that he likes to play.
Yeah.
And it's like jamming, right? But it's
Yeah.
like, it's at first blush, it's like, okay, are you listening to that to make fun of? But it's like, wait a
Yeah.
minute, we have Indian families, so he's picked up on this, and this is
Yeah.
this is part of his tapestry now,
Yeah. Yeah.
as well as, you know, Latino music,
Yeah.
as well as R&B and hip hop and anything else. That's part of him now.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I was talking about role model and the things that our kids pick up
Yeah.
unintentionally.
Yeah, and I love everything that you just said right now, and I think what we are blessed with, and I can say this about you and Nick too, and I'm going to speak about Shally in this way, is he is, and both of you too, you're very interested in these kids, right? So like, you're interested in wanting to have them or show them give them an experience. So with that comes this interest in explaining things to them and really trying to bond with them that way, and you put that effort in, where instead you're not just brushing them off, and you're not just being like, hey, yeah, this happened, blah blah blah. So I love that Shelly does that. I think,
Intentionality.
yeah,
Is the new
intentionality.
word.
Yes.
You know, when someone told me, I have a good
Yeah.
vocabulary,
You do.
but when someone was like, you have to
Be intentional.
I was
Yes.
like, oh wow,
Yeah.
like okay, like even that little
Yeah.
thing that you do every Tuesday, the way that that's intentional. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay,
Yeah. That's true.
wow,
Yeah.
yeah. So I do agree. There are times where I'm like, you know, I don't have the patience for it.
Yeah.
But we have to make sure that we are taking the time to
Yeah.
walk them through these things.
Yes.
We don't have the time for it because we are adults,
Yeah.
and someone else already took the time to do that, so we already know it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I already know that, but it's not for us.
Us, right.
It's for the kids who now need to know it,
Yeah.
so that when they go to school and have these conversations,
Yeah.
you know, we joke with Jacob all the time because we went to Rome and we saw the Colosseum. So now when it comes up in class, he's going to be like, no, teacher, that's not correct because I've been there.
I've been there.
So that's
Yeah.
the kind of experience that I think your son will have once he
Right.
goes to India.
Yeah.
And people can go, well, you know, the Taj Mahal is, and he's like, hold on. let me educate you on this.
Yeah.
My wish is for the majority of the kids in this world to try to have a
Yeah.
similar experience if they can.
Yes.
Not everybody can, but I
Right.
think traveling is more than just having fun. It's really exposure to different cultures,
is.
different
Yeah.
people, how they dress, how they talk.
Yeah.
And I think that is important in this world today.
Yeah, and I think it goes hand in hand with being open-minded, and that's really our family in a nutshell, you know? We are open-minded and we like to learn and we like to have fun if we can with that.
All right, so my last question here.
Okay.
What do you think about toxic masculinity?
Okay.
And where have you seen it? Where have you like said that's not right?
Oh, toxic masculinity. Okay, let's start with what that really means.
Yeah, break it down.
Right?
Break it down.
So, toxic masculinity, you know, it tells men that they need to be tough, unemotional, and in quotes, provider above all else. I think we can probably see that everywhere sometimes, you know, and especially if you go back a few years, maybe even longer, culturally too. I think it's cool to be to not show emotion, right? Or that's the norm for men not to do. You don't show emotion, got to toughen up. Why are you crying? I think that's toxic to me, right? Which then it makes it harder for dads to be vulnerable, affectionate, and open with their kids when we're talking about dads.
Vulnerability is a big one. That's a word that for a very long time I didn't truly understand.
Yeah.
Because I think perhaps a lot of people feel like they're being vulnerable, but they're not really being vulnerable.
Okay. Yeah.
I think being in that space really requires someone to either teach you, show you that it's okay, or at least acknowledge what it looks like.
Yeah.
Because if we try to do that ourselves, we're like, okay, that we hit the nail on the head, and other people are like, man, you always got a wall up, and it's like, what? So I think that from a father's perspective, we tend to see it more from mom's side, right? The quote unquote feminine side of things, which I think all men need to have a part of. But I think getting that from the dad's side and seeing a different tone of being vulnerable is amazing.
It really is. It really, really is. And it's so important. It brings you closer, whether it's to your spouse, whether it's to your family members or your children.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Okay. Well, we've reached the end of our podcast, Daisy.
Aww.
I so appreciate you spending some time with us and giving us the womanly perspective on fatherhood. Again, fatherhood is a role, which I think you embody pretty well. And obviously you have the motherly side, which is fantastic. So we may have an episode where we dive into the motherly side that really plays a yin and a yang to the fatherly side.
Okay.
Sometimes they work well together. Sometimes it's destructive. And sometimes you only have single parents, right? That have to have the fatherly side as well. So I'd like to dive into that in more detail whenever we get a moment. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamil, and you can count on me.
Amazing.
I'll be back.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate you spending some time with us. We'll talk again on the next.
You could never find somebody do it like me. I'ma turn it all the way up, cause it kamikaze. Go ahead and try, baby, you are gonna see that you'll never ever find somebody do it like me.